We're live.
Alrighty. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Delusions of Grandeur. I am one of your hosts. But today we are continuing our birthday picks as we sort of introduce you to some of the movies tonight that Brandon has picked for us. So, Brandon, why don't you take it away and tell us the first film that we are going to be discussing today?
Yes, tonight's picks for my birthday, which is tomorrow, by the way. Not that anybody,
Happy preemptive birthday.
Yep, I will.
Happy birthday.
I'll turn a slightly aged 25 plus a couple of years on top of it. But any case,
I wish I was that.
We're covering the movie Dark Dungeons by Gabriel Gonda, Gabriel Gonda, from 2014. This film is an adaptation of the Jack Chick comic Dark Dungeons, the anti-D&D religious comic. And it's about a group of innocent college girls who get seduced into the world of role play.
Oh
no! And they must
help us.
They must manage to get their souls saved and save the rest of the campus from this threat, or will they be swallowed whole by Satan himself?
Or is it Cthulhu? I was confused.
Cthulhu, yeah.
No, yeah, Cthulhu.
I have not read the Chick tract, but I highly doubt that Cthulhu was in the Chick tract. But then again, I know that there are a lot of things that they explicitly lift from the Chick tract in the visual department and in the dialogue and stuff like that. So maybe, I don't know. Anybody read the Chick tract?
Oh, I've read it long ago, long before this thing came on. And I got somebody in the private chat saying, hey, add me already. Oh, there you guys are. Y'all are at the very bottom.
God damn it.
Yes.
It's one of those things where it does not easily reveal the additional ones beyond 6, but it allows me to.
Yeah, it was very explicitly Cthulhu. Like they tried like the Satan thing, and then it was just suddenly Cthulhu, and it was like, well, I guess we're doing this now.
Yeah, they even included this dice game, just in case we weren't sure.
Yeah, which Cthulhu.
Boy.
People knew about Cthulhu obviously for long, before the internet, but it's like Cthulhu took on a whole new life once the internet came along.
It sure did, and especially with gaming and stuff. I feel like Cthulhu was everywhere for a few years there. Yeah. There was 3 or 4 different board games. Munchkin had its own variety. Steve Jackson's games just went crazy with it.
A whole South Park arc about it.
Cthulhu. Yeah.
And don't forget the yes, you can't forget Cartman's song.
Yeah.
Cthulhu.
I played Call of Cthulhu for a few years as well. Yeah.
So why don't we go into first impressions? Is somebody eating something? They would mute their microphone. Just while you're eating. But let's start with Dane, since he was there. Was this your first time seeing Dark Dungeons?
Yes and no. So I saw the JonTron review of the movie long before I watched it tonight. And so I watched the full thing in context tonight without JonTron's added footage and jokes and stuff. Which, if you have not seen his review, I highly, highly recommend it. It is absolutely hilarious. I love JonTron in general, but I was surprised when I saw the review compared to the actual film. He actually covered pretty much all the major scenes. There was very little that was left out. So I was like, well, that's why I said yes and no, because I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I more or less seen it. But anyway, but I did finally see the whole thing in context without the added commentary and jokes. And I'll say this, knowing that it is a satirical adaptation, they absolutely nail the the dialogue from bad Christian media in general, and specifically the Chick tract on which it was based. And full disclosure, I used to work at Target, and I used to have to clean out the bathrooms when I wasn't tending to carts and stuff. And every now and again, I would see people leave Chick tracts in the bathroom. Like there must have been at least one person that did that, so I had to clean them up. I know, but so trust me, that stuff is very real, and people really believe it. But like,
wait, is that like those religious pamphlets with the metal fucking artwork and shit in there?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chick tracts. For those who don't know, Chick tracts are like seriously psychotic. Like they're unbelievable. Like once you read them,
Fundamentalists.
they are
pretty much
intensely like racist and homophobic in ways you would not believe. Like
Yeah,
I think they're actually banned in Canada for that reason.
I actually do have one as my avatar tonight.
I think that they are. They either are or were the Jack T. Chick publications. Yeah, Jack T. Chick publications. I believe that they either are or were classified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group at one point. If not, then they're dangerously close.
They're very close. Yes.
Yeah. Because sometimes certain groups, they make it onto the list, and sometimes they get off of it. But anyway, point being that knowing that it is a satire, they absolutely nail everything about the tone, the clunky exposition dialogue in the beginning, the sensationalist scare tactics, the fear mongering, all that stuff. They absolutely nail it. And I did see the JonTron review first, and the way that he presents it there, I think that he did say that it was a satire, but he was also like, well, but the creator of the original work did take these things seriously, and it was a true adaptation. And I saw the side-by-side comparisons. They nail certain panels, certain like fonts of like the suicide letter and stuff. Like it's up there with like Zack Snyder's like panel recreations of like Watchmen.
The suicide letter's identical. Yeah.
Exactly.
Come on.
They did get his permission, actually.
Yeah,
and he thinks it's actually a serious film.
That's the other thing, is that it is a real adaptation. It's not like a parody per se. It's a real adaptation that they got the rights to. So it's like, knowing that the people who made it are RPG fans themselves, then it is in the realm of satire. Yes. If it were just anybody else, then you would say it was just a straight adaptation, and in which case then it's like, well, then the real hatefulness and the fear mongering and all that stuff shines through.
It's kind of like how Starship Troopers was originally supposed to be a straight up adaptation of the book, and then eventually it just turned into Paul Verhoeven turned that into a satire of the book.
Yeah.
Some things just parody themselves too,
Yeah. Well, that's what happened to That's what happened to Dr. Strangelove. Dr. Strangelove started off as a serious film, and then as they adapted it from the Peter George book, Stanley and his writing partners were like, we can't do this seriously. It just comes across as funny. And so it became a satire and a black comedy. But, it's kind of similar here. And, like, there are some definite clues that they're in on the joke in certain spots. But it was also that I could see, because I do kind of berate certain people for not getting that certain things are meant to be jokes. But I will say this one, it's such an effective satire that I would assume that the uninitiated would probably think that they were being more serious than they really were.
Oh yeah, you could show this to Bible thumpers, and I bet you they'd be like, "See,
oh yeah,
this can play as a straight adaptation."
Yeah,
very
but that's also why it's genius, because they don't do some of those obvious winks to the camera nearly as often as other people do.
Subtle, really subtle for the most part.
Yeah.
Cthulhu is a pretty in your face, we're
Yes,
fucking
it
around.
is. It is
Right.
like there are certain bits like that, as well as like the what could we possibly do in our dorms on a Saturday night, and it's like
Right.
they hint at like the homoerotic type shit,
yeah.
like pretty
Right.
good. But
The one girl that I have up here, you get definite ideas that she is looking forward to a very different college experience than the other girl probably
No
was.
more boyfriend for me.
What's great about that though is it covers like that. Yeah, we know that, knowing that it's a satire, but a lot of those kinds of religiously themed pieces, some of which are more hardcore hateful than others. Some of them are just kind of blissfully harmless. But in both cases, a lot of the times you'll see these like other connotations that sneak their way into the work without the artist having necessarily intended them to, but they're so clearly there, and so they capture that really well.
So why don't we continue then with the first impressions?
This was very homoerotic in
totally.
many scenes. Like it was surprising.
Well, why don't we go on to you, Dustin, about your first impressions? Is this the first time you've seen Dark Dungeons?
Okay, so I used to watch a channel called The Bible Reloaded, which has since become, I think, Hannah Reloaded, and it's sort of split off into two. It used to be two people that ran it, and now it's Hannah Reloaded and Actual Jake. Like, they're separate channels now.
Did you say Hannah Reloaded?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, so they used to read. Their main claim to fame back in the day was they would read chick tracts, and so they would read chick tracts and like do voices, and they'd have guests to do voices, and it was like a whole big thing. And so they kind of made it like a special. They kind of made like a special edition of when they read because they were both like big D&D players. So they kind of made a special event out of the Dark Dungeons read. And then when this Dark Dungeons movie did come out, they reviewed it for their channel. And so that's how I first heard of it. Like I didn't have time to revisit their review of it, which I really wish I had. Because I remember seeing it a few years ago, well, many years ago, and being like, that became a thing. All right. And then when I found out we were doing it for the show, I was like, okay, I really want to see it again. And so I think this is the first time I've actually sat down and watched it without any like external commentary. And this rocks. Like, oh my God. Like, I was laughing so hard, like the first like 15 minutes, like just every beat is insane. Like totally insane. Like oh my God.
We tried to get them kicked off campus, but they're just too popular.
Yeah. Most gamers have that problem.
RPGers,
especially tabletop gamers. Holy shit!
Or it's like RPG night, and it's like the sex rave with like.
I love it.
Yeah, dude, clutching your dice bag and beating them off with a stick. You know what I mean?
It makes me wonder if I did. It makes me wonder if I hung out with the wrong group in college.
Yeah, really. I mean, these kids are like the coolest kids on campus. Like the fraternity kids are envious of these guys, and like what a line the whole are you ready to RPG? That whole thing, like that was funny, and then which one of my favorite bits from the JonTron review was the part where it's like, we should go, and he leans in and he's like, pleased to meet you, and they're like, we're just leaving, and then JonTron's like, hi, just leaving, my name is Tweet. He tweets a whistle, Tweet, rip.
Did you get everything?
Oh no, I laughed really hard at that myself.
Yeah,
like,
really.
I don't think we belong here. And this guy just goes up, hey.
So, what about you, Forrest? Was that your first time seeing
Yeah.
Dark Dungeons?
You know, I had never even heard of this movie until you told us about it. Yeah, this is my first time watching it. Just finished watching it today. And I've got largely have to agree. Where were these rowdy, drunken D&D parties when I was in college?
Yeah, really.
I mean, when I was in college, I went to rowdy, drunken parties, but we would play beer pong. We would play beer pong and drink scuzzy beer that had been exposed to dirty ping pong balls.
I think they were playing beer pong in this one, but
Among other things.
Oh yeah.
Well, you also gotta love, so when they actually do get ready to RPG, when they get out their tabletop stuff and they do it in this beautifully choreographed, coordinated motion, and it's like, your local card shop, the people that play there, they wish they could do it that fancily,
Right.
So, anything else that you wanted to add to first impressions, Forrest?
Chick tracts. I've read them while just browsing the web over the years. They're batshit crazy, but I still find some entertainment value out of. I get some entertainment value out of them just for how batshit crazy. Well, it's kind of twofold. Just how batshit crazy Jack Chick was. And also, even though, and as batshit crazy as he was actually a damn good artist.
Mm-hmm.
He was. He could draw an evil face like nobody's business.
Yeah. Well, the artwork for Chick tracts is very distinct. Let's say that. I mean, so for those who don't know, the actual shape of the Chick tract, it is not standard comic book size. They are very small. So and fun fact, their
like
shape
cards.
Well, their shape was actually based on a Tijuana Bible, which a Tijuana Bible is a short pornographic black and white comic. So their design is based on that, and like the dimensions of them, they're fairly small. They're horizontal. They're meant to fit in someone's back pocket theoretically, and thus be easy to distribute. They're pretty wordy, despite being so small. There's a lot of dialogue balloons relative to the artwork, and the artwork has a very kind of simplistic, almost 1950s comic style.
Very easy.
Very easy, and yet,
I wouldn't say it's that good.
Well, but
it's detailed, but it's not that good.
Yeah, it's not as good as artwork from the period, but it's like in that same style. But point being that you will get like grotesquerie thrown in there when it comes to anything demonic or anything that is any religion or group that is not, that of Jack T. Chick. And what's interesting is that the degrees of groups that are in the out group, shall we say, relative to Jack T. Chick, like, it's a pretty extensive list. Like, most even mainstream Christianity gets in there.
He doesn't even like Catholics.
No, which, I mean, a lot of Protestants of that stripe don't. But the part that shocked me was in the Chick tract for this one and the adaptation and in others. C.S. Lewis is considered a cult. And he was
that actually.
And he was a Christian writer, one of the more well-known.
It sounds like he just dated most people and things except those Tijuana Bibles, baby.
Believe me, I have experience.
The existence of God. So
there's definitely a lot of internecine fighting within that. You'll get a lot of, there will be a lot of people who would call that heretical, even though he called himself a Christian.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Is like he's out there even for because I knew plenty of evangelical types. Growing up, I knew plenty of people that would very easily say that such and such or so and so was satanic or whatever, and yet they all fall over C.S. Lewis. And in all fairness, C.S. Lewis is a great author, so there's plenty of reasons to fawn over him. But point being, like, C.S. Lewis is always one of the ones that they like to tout as one of the great Christian authors, and rightfully so. But then it's like, so he's a cult too? And even like J.R.R. Tolkien, who was not like, he wasn't like a Christian author per se, but he and C.S. Lewis were very close, and they derived their literature from a lot of the same sources, including, Christianity and stuff. And, so it's like, oh yeah, so he's a cult too, I guess. And it's like, geez.
So, Roger, you were trying to say something that kind of got drowned out. It can happen in this. Actually, why don't you go ahead and say what you're going to say, but also give us your first impressions.
Well, I had quite a bit of experience for this matter, because with my age, I went through the 70s and the early 80s when we had a lot of D&D talk. I was a big D&D fan back in the day. I played through all the games and all that. There's a lot of Christianity alignments against D&D, just like with comic books or anything that was completely different. But, as I know, we talked about many different things about, in the group about, the influence of role-playing games on the movie. We talked about, interesting about C.S. Lewis. Yeah, he was trying to either disprove or prove God, one way or the other way. But I've read his books, but, they're very entertaining. The chick tracks, the people I knew that handed them out were all Jehovah's Witnesses. You would see them come out. They'll give you one, I'll give it back to them, or not. So I don't need those.
Those are all the ones I would see.
You'll see them on the bathroom stalls, urinals, outside parks, everywhere.
All Watchtower
ones, man, where it's like, you better give up Christmas, you're going to burn it like a fire.
You see, the key of the literature is, like, if they're handing it out, like, take it from them and tear it up and make sure they see you do it. Like, they'll never want to interact with you again.
Well, and here's what's so funny about all that is, like, if their stuff is really that great and that important and all that, why are they putting them in bathrooms and all these like filthy places?
I mean, save yourself some toilet paper.
What they're trying to do, they're trying to communicate with every person. Not just their group. They have to communicate with all the people.
Well, theoretically, every person will need that.
They have to get part of the 166,000 that will actually become, that they'll be able to meet God. But so they'll do anything in their power to meet and greet how many people, to convert as many as possible. But the meet and greet thing is the biggest deal with them. That's why those little booklets are that size. They can put in their pockets. They can hand out to all their friends, and they hand out like crazy. So I went through all that. But anyways, I guess getting on with the show itself, I was kind of I wasn't really sure it was going to be a satanic thing or just a little bit later on. It's like, it's just a parody. It's a different parody. Let's RPG, let's role play. So I had some fun. I definitely had some fun with it. I don't know if I could. I really didn't get as much out of it that Dane got. I just pretty much looked at it as a straight on through movie. Just a bunch of people getting together, having some weird time together, role playing, getting to their character, and so on and so forth. I didn't want to go too far about the movie, into the movie before everybody else had a chance to talk about it.
Okay, so Dave, is this your first experience with Dark Dungeons?
This is my first experience with Dark Dungeons, but I've had the movie around, sitting on one of my shelves since I picked up all the other films that have to do with like the gamers and things like that. I just went off and just bought them all, and I watched all the gamer stuff, and this is the only one that I didn't do because I thought we were going to do this like sooner than this, because we talked about it like a while back, but not now we're finally doing it. Now that I've finally seen it, I did enjoy it. I definitely think that whatever budget they had, they definitely worked with it. I mean,
amazing things with what they had.
This looks like something like I could probably see in the movie theater. So,
and it was very high quality.
And the actors in there were definitely like theatrical.
These people were good. Like they were all good. Like
Yeah.
They got the tone of it.
Oh yes, they did.
I mean, it was all over the top. It was all kind of what you would really think that a D&D meet would be like, you know. Those little like castle like things where they were putting all the characters and shit. Those look cool. You know,
They did.
I mean, I would love to have that little set, like playing with it or whatnot.
Mhm.
But in any case, I enjoyed it for what it was, and it was entertaining. And I guess I would say that for the anti D&D movement, this wasn't a bad film. So.
Actually, just as an aside, and one that I will, that I'm sure Mo will appreciate. Of course, the same people involved here were also involved in a little project called Journey Quest that they even had a poster of sitting in the thing. And if people know Journey Quest, they also know this is not a group that would be posting something anti-D&D.
A couple regular cast members up in there too.
Yeah.
But Mo, while we go with yours, what is this your first experience with Dark Dungeons?
I'm pretty sure that I saw a trailer for this at our local convention. These dudes are regional to me, so like I think Seattle or Everett or
Portland.
one of those places over there. Or is it Portland?
Yeah, Portland.
They shoot a lot of stuff in Washington, but I can understand why. It's
Or at least one of the writers was in Portland.
it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth between those two cities, especially when it comes to nerd shit, because they're both kind of meccas for that, I guess. But it's just like from Journey Quest onward, you just always see this stuff screened or advertised at our local convention. So Zombie Orpheus is something I've been messing with for a while. Journey Quest is definitely, I think, the peak of it for me. Like, this is great. I liked it a lot, but I think like Roger, especially, you need to check out Journey Quest, dude. That is just too good.
Shoot, and the Gamers for that matter.
Yeah.
Gamers is great as well. Both those are kind of like really their main deal, and for good reason. They put a lot into it. And this is like kind of, I feel like, a fun offshoot of that kind of stuff because it's taken a different approach to sort of parodying the culture around RPGs and gaming and stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun. I like its compact runtime as well.
Yeah, very easy to get through at the time, definitely. Jake, is this your first time watching Dark Dungeons?
Strangely enough, it was. Now, I could not tell you exactly when I became aware of this particular movie. I certainly did not click in my brain that it was a Zombie Orpheus project, or I would have checked it out sooner. It just somehow did not click in my brain. But like for those, I do hope that most of you did take the time, or if you didn't, that you can find the time to look at the link that he sent for the gamers, because it is a classic and it's awesome. But this was the, and yes, I understand, Brandon, you are quite right. It does give good context for this. I was introduced to these through Brandon, through the gamers. And I've been a big fan of that series since then. There are 4 movies I think have been in that particular.
3 movies, and then they have a series, 1 episode series, and
right,
and a live thing that they did, which is kind
right. Of cool. So basically, and one of the clearest nods the audience gets, one of the very clearest, obvious nods that you get right away, is that those shadowy figures who are standing around talking is pretty much the gamers from the first movie, with a couple of substitutions.
And they had the shadow reference.
Yes, there was a shadow reference thrown in, which was great. I loved it.
The shadow.
Yes. And then, it's just, I love those. I've done a lot of RPGing myself, and so I was able to appreciate a great deal of the humor and the points that they were making. I did laugh out loud at the absurdity of a couple of things that were done. Like that rave / frat party / gaming session. It was just like, on what planet?
Yeah. That right there was pure fantasy.
It was.
That was a bigger fantasy than anything else in the movie.
You'd actually be surprised, man. I mean, maybe not at just a random college game night, but our local sci-fi fantasy convention here.
Well, the idea that they would rule the school that way would be...
It's pretty nuts, though, to see a bunch of nerds and steampunk kids all get together and have a rave.
Right.
I've witnessed it. It's a strange environment.
At convention, sure, but not on especially not in white bread USA,
Right. And then the overtop nature of the performances, these two goody two-shoes girls who just clearly need to be educated in the ways of the world, and all that stuff, and just
so to speak.
Yes. And overall, it was a strange movie more than anything else. It definitely works well as a this is like satire almost at its purest, where they're not trying to make you laugh so much as they're trying to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But they did manage to do both, and it was pretty interesting. And yes, the short runtime definitely helps a little bit, but it was kind of fun, and I wish I had thought about looking into this sooner. I still need to watch more Journey Quest. I don't think I've seen all of that, but
oh god, dude.
Wasn't this group also? Wasn't there other big project like Demon Hunters or something like that?
Oh yes, Demon Hunters and Camp. What was it?
Camp something or other. It was
Dead Camper Lake. Demon Hunters.
Yes. Yeah. So they've had some interesting projects, and any of their projects you would look at, and then you look at this and go, yeah, they're just teasing.
Well, of course, my time playing D&D has gone back into the early 90s to mid 90s. And of course, that was a time where you were introduced to stuff like this, these chick tracks, especially because it was in the 80s that they were really, when D&D was getting popular. Believe it or not, there was a time when D&D was actually in the mainstream, and then a lot of this.
We had a cartoon,
Dungeons
and Dragons cartoon, and a movie.
They were trying to really, to really cater to it.
In fairness, in the 80s, there was a cartoon for everything.
Yeah.
There was a cartoon for Rambo, aimed at children.
There was a Toxic Avenger cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
But, this is one, and I had thought about pairing this with Mazes and Monsters.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a serious version of this, really.
Yeah, with Tom Hanks.
With Tom Hanks is probably one of his earliest roles. And again, it's one of those things. I remember my father used to tell me, so are you going to commit suicide yet with that D&D thing? And he was joking, of course, but my those who knew my father knew he kind of joked and he kind of didn't. But it was just something that people took up as just another book to burn, I guess you could say.
Time waster, going to get with your friends. I mean, they got some kookies out there with the role playing and funny stuff, but overall, it's just about camaraderie. I played it extensively when I was in the military. We would play all weekend long. We had time off. It was a blast. We stay up for 3 days straight. But I think it was really a positive experience. It didn't really deserve all the negative it got. I know they should have done some little bit. Like, it was like one page out of the Dungeon Master's Guide that had the priest magic circles in there that could have done something with, and deities and demigods. Yeah, they could have done a little bit different artwork over there, but no, overall, I really had a lot of fun, and that didn't seem a big deal.
What's funny is that I was a child of the late '90s, early 2000s, and I got the '90s equivalent of that, which was people were saying Pokemon was satanic or bad or whatever.
Also, Harry Potter.
Harry Potter
was satanic.
Harry Potter as well. But I got those when I was a kid. You know, that kind of argument. I still played with the cards and stuff, but like I was not immune from, like, I know my mom was not like thrilled that we were playing, but we still did it. And then somehow or other, Magic the Gathering managed to slip in.
I remember that. I remember when I was.
I don't know why. I don't know why that managed to slip in, but D&D, I remember, was always in our house, was always considered to be bad.
Dane, I will tell you right now about I can confirm Magic the Gathering, like the satanic panic around that, because when I was in middle school, two of my classmates were this Pentecostal brother and sister, and one day during lunch, some of my friends were playing Magic during lunch, and one of them came over and knocked over the whole game.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck that kid up.
Well, no, but what I mean is that for some reason, like, D&D was like explicitly forbidden, and yet we got into Magic the Gathering, and that didn't seem to cause a stir. Largely because most of the stuff that we were into, we just kept secret from my mom, because she was the one that would freak out about all that stuff.
Well, I mean, and of course, and Roger, you bring up a lot of point, because a lot of the people that I knew that got really into D&D, funny enough, got into it through the military because of some of the places. Like, I had a lot of friends and several relatives that were stationed in South Korea, and they used to tell me this is probably one of the most boring posts that you could possibly be in. And and they said D&D helped them get through that a lot of the time, and that's something there, and it's something. But again, it's sometimes there are creative ways, and people aren't doing a lot of. Well, most of them weren't doing drugs or alcohol while doing that. But I remember also the 80s and 90s was that time of the whole satanic cult thing. You always got news reports of satanic cult this or satanic cult that, which you don't get nowadays, but they were big back in those days. I guess, you know, that whole deal. But also with that, I got into everything D&D related. I was obsessed with movies related to D&D. I read Knights of the Dinner Table, which I posted a copy of that to check out for people. But just because I loved I just loved the whole thing, the whole concept of it. And then, of course, I ran into the gamers from Dead Gentleman, which became Zombie Orifice, and found out about this project because they did this Kickstarter project for it. I can't remember Kickstarter. It was it was a crowdfunding project.
Yeah.
And I saw the poster with the blood on the dice as they were rolling down, and I was like, I've got to get behind this.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, it was well worth it. And what I got at the end of it was well worth the wait. It had so many subtle nods, and you could see it as a dual movie. Those people in that chick tract frame of mind could see it as a straight warn them against Satan movie. Whereas people who actually are gamers, especially if you were into it like I was, could see how it was a satire and all of the subtleties they put in. There's a reason why I put up stuff like the Dead Alewives Dungeons and Dragons thing, you know, where they start out Dungeons and Dragons, Satan's game, or the I think or Knights of the Dinner Table, where they put up stuff like Nitro was named after a Knights of the Dinner Table character. They had so many Journey Crest and Gamers references. It was just, it was so fun to go through it and catch them all again. I had to put this up. It was going to be up here sometime in the future, at least for me. It's just, I figured this was the time to throw it. So
Well, this really is a satire in the true sense. I really hate how most of the time when people say satire, what they're referring to is not actually satire.
the thing in
This,
parody.
yeah, they're thinking of a parody or like a broad comedy or a spoof or something like that. All of those have their place. This really is a true satire, and it's on par with something like Doctor Strangelove, which is a satire in the sense that it is surprisingly really close to their source material, aka real life nuclear wars drills and plans and stuff. It's to such a degree that it illuminates the absurdity of real life, or in this case the absurdity of the real life chick tract, and it does it by being so close to the real thing, and not leaving the audience nearly as many easy outs and nearly as many like winking to the camera or things like that. And that's really good. That shows that they were being smart about it.
Like I say, Jack Chick, I'm sure, watched this thing and thought they did a great job adapting.
Exactly.
Who's this Cthulhu guy anyway?
Exactly.
But let's go ahead and I'll go over the plot as we go. It's pretty simplistic enough. Of course, you've got our two leads, Debbie and Marcy. Debbie having a much bigger part in this than she did in the comic. As they, good Christian girls going to college for the first time, getting introduced and being warned away, because you could have a nice, clean 50s college experience, which is the way that they presented the thing in the film at the beginning. But you have to beware of the role players. They're the most popular kids in the school.
They've tried to get them banished from campus, not just thrown out, but banished.
Just too popular.
Yeah, which the use of the term banished is a very telling phrase also. It's like, gee, that doesn't provide us any kind of clues at all.
And they also warned them not to go into the steam tunnels, which is a Knights of the Dinner Table reference. Bob, one of the characters, is notorious for actually having done LARPing, which they bring up later, and went into the steam tunnels and got lost him and a group got lost for weeks.
Well, and they have the Young American Films propaganda film there, which that was a good touch, because that was the famous studio that put out a lot of those scare films.
So what did y'all think of Debbie and Marcy as characters?
They were seriously missing the porn music when they were alone together.
Every time. Oh my god.
If only they'd have had the porn music playing, then they would have known what to they would have known what to do.
I mean, there were moments where they were together where I felt like I was watching Showtime After Dark.
Really?
It seemed like I was setting up for that.
Yeah,
like like low budget, like softcore stuff, like you'd see on cable.
Yeah, it's like if
we can only imagine what happens after this.
If only they'd exactly. If only they'd have had the music, then they would have known what to do. But it's because they didn't have the porno music, they went off in these crazy directions.
It's like heavy flirting. Okay, bye. And it's like,
yeah. Well, but again, the funny part is that so many movies of really hardcore Christian movies and stuff, and media in general, they tend to have a lot of unintended connotations, specifically of the homoerotic variety, and they nailed it there. And even in media that is not explicitly Christian, but even in media from the 50s and stuff, like you had a lot of unintentional homoeroticism that they absolutely nail in this.
Oh yeah, I thought it was I thought it was a great dynamic. And yeah, you would think to themselves, if you didn't know better, they would be it'd be a very different movie.
They come off as definitely like a couple in most scenes.
Yeah. They want to play with each other's 20-sided dice. Or however many. How many sides are there for the D&D dice?
Well, there's several different dice.
Well,
You
20.
know, 4-sided,
Yeah.
6-sided, 8-sided,
There's a
12-sided,
whole kit,
10-sided,
dude.
20-sided.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
something
this-
Kevin
this-
McAllister friggin' Caltrops bag full of danger, you know?
Yeah,
The
Marcy
cult
was
wizard.
trying. Marcy was hoping very much to score nat 20.
Yeah.
I never, and I think they never got me through this. I reached level 9 as a character long ago, and I was cheated. I never got taught the real magic,
You never got the one
real
power.
Power.
Real power.
Yeah, dude, I mean,
That's
so good.
I never
James,
even
yeah,
got that far, I don't think, on a single character.
Petro
But
was
I
what, like
imagine
18th level?
Legit.
That Stove Lynn was like 15th.
Jontron made the joke of, what is this quote unquote real power? And then she waves her finger around and makes the symbols appear, and he's like, whoa, that's what the real power is? Shit, I want that right now.
Oh yeah, when all those Lord of the Rings letters are flying out of her.
Yeah.
the characters you've got some minor characters, like you've got Mike, which is the kind of like the jock character that's on their side. There's Nitro, which is kind of the wacky character,
Right.
and the preacher and
Mistress
Professor. But Mistress Frost is the only other one that kind of steals the show at the end of it all, because she's kind of the head of the coven, so to speak. When they get pulled in at like a mixer, they get pulled into RPG night as the RPGers take over.
Yeah.
As they do at parties. I remember going to college frat parties, and it would always just break out into D&D. It was crazy.
Dude, in a sense, we did. Like, we'd take it
couldn't make
over
'em
so
stop.
hard, the party would cease to exist before it began.
I mean, why do you think they kept having to kick frats off of our campus, huh?
Yeah. Well, another Jontron joke was about Mistress Frost, how she's totally the right demographic for and the right age for tabletop gaming.
Well, there's a clear
Yes.
dominatrix roleplay thing going on there. I mean, she's
really.
walking around with a riding crop at one point later on.
Which
I
again,
miss the writing crop, but I'm not surprised in the slightest.
it's like, if only they'd have had the porno music, then it would have gone in a whole different direction.
The guy comes out in like a Minotaur costume. Like, what was that?
Yeah, he has like, a corset and, nipple rings and stuff like that.
I need the harder stuff. It's time to LARP.
Yeah.
Harder stuff, like it's cocaine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So good.
Now, I'm going to send a copy of an image from the comic for those who didn't get a chance to read it. It's not a very long comic, but that image always bothered me, where for those who are actually unable to see it, it's just the way that she's got this weird sneer on her face.
She's got the stink eye.
Yeah, some of these. See, the thing with Chick Tracks is like the quality is like radically different on every page. Like,
Yeah.
some pages are drawn like, some pages look fine, and then some pages are drawn just like they don't look human at all.
Very inconsistent.
She looks like, what's his name? What's it, Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
She looks like she's got a stash.
Her face, or
One thing that's stuck out in my mind that I want to share before I forget it is we get the line like, I don't want to be Debbie anymore. I want to be Elf Star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody, I forget where I saw this. Like, I think it was in the comments for that original like Bible Reloaded video. Like, if you search Bible Reloaded, I think it comes up as Hannah Reloaded now. But and that's the channel that this would be on. But I think it might have been in the comments for that video. Somebody was like, I was a teenager in the 80s when the Dark Dungeons Chick Track came out, and like we played D&D, and one of my friends had a shirt made that said, I don't want to be Debbie, I want to be Elf Star. And they wore it to like play D&D.
Well, and that's what's kind of an amusing thing about this, that this part I didn't know until I did research after watching the Jontron review. But the Dark Dungeons chick tract apparently had quite the cult following within the tabletop gaming community.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's what
it was hilarious.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why they made the movie.
I think it's a collectible. Like, did they discontinue this one?
Well, so apparently, chick tracts, they have certain ones because Jack T. Chick he's dead now, but his publishing house is still around. They have certain ones that are more in active circulation, and then other ones that are more print on demand. So yes and no. I think this is one of the print on demand ones. There are definitely certain ones that I guess must be more popular than others. But I do think this one is at least print on demand, if not in the regular rotation. But yeah, even some of their more controversial ones, which is saying a lot in and of itself. But yeah, even some of their more controversial ones, even if they're not in regular rotation, you could still request them as like a print on demand thing.
So let's see here.
I remember some people were collecting chick tracks. Like, actually, I did that myself for a while. Like, I would collect the chick tracks I'd find out in the wild. I think I only had like 10 or 12. I kept hoping to find the Dark Dungeons one, but never showed up.
Such a popular one. They grabbed those up right away. I mean, shoot, we had one. I don't know if you noticed this, Jake, but at our game shop at One Eyed Jack's, they actually had that chick tract posted in the bathroom because the bathroom there had it was lined in D&D related comics, and that was one that they put up there.
I don't know that I remember that, but I tell you what I did remember, and I never could find it. And it bugged me, but that was that Gaming Way of Life thing where that guy he supposedly wrote all these job applications to different companies using his knowledge of games to apply for each job. And it was like a list of the response letters, and some of those were classic.
So
I wish I could have found it.
So let's talk about... as far as going, they get kind of drawn into the D&D life.
You do.
You start having your grades fall because you're constantly working on your character and...
Well, once you pop, you can't stop.
And people are getting concerned, especially about Elisa, I believe. Was it not Lisa? Darn it.
Not Marcy, the other one.
Yeah, the one that doesn't die, Marcy. It is Marcy.
No, Marcy's the one who does die.
I thought it was Debbie that dies.
Debbie, I think Debbie's the one who lives. Although, to be fair, I think the names are switched. I think in the actual chick tract, the names are switched.
Okay, Debbie is the one who seeks the power in the chick tract, and Debbie is the one who dies in the actual comic. So, I mean, I can't. Yeah. Any case, the one that dies, the one that doesn't die is having trouble, and that's when she gets invited to have access to the real power.
Well, her teacher in this, I assume, secular school is talking about these wicked RPGs, which, I mean, they never say if it's a secular school or whatever. We're kind of meant to believe it is because it's like an Anytown USA kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in Jack T. Chick world, it's the 1950s. But it's like he's talking about those wicked RPGs, and I'm like, no professor in college would ever say that, and certainly not.
Maybe it depends on the college.
I would think a guy like Chick would see professors as a bunch of godless liberals.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Is like, which kind of college are we talking about? And again, I think the only way that could work is if it were a Bible college or if it were the 1950s, which again, Jack T. Chick seems to kind of live in that mentality.
Ah, yes, the mythical 50s, the one that everyone that remembers not the way it happened.
Well, it's of course they raise her to the 8th level, which is the level that can learn how to really cast spells. So she uses the spells to get an A on her test, which all of the backgrounds are like, okay, so now we need to not only have somebody else corrupted, but we need to have somebody sacrificed in order to raise the dark demons from the depths. And so they invite them. She's saying, I want something harder or more intense because I need to raise my friend up to level 8 as well. And so they do the LARPing with the whole the whole thing where Nitro comes out and
How are you doing that with your
Nitro.
voice?
Like I could not get over that. Nitro.
Which it's like, so he's Nitro, so is there someone named Thunder, and that way you could have WCW
Glacier.
Nitro.
Just the
Well,
whole
you could have
American
W-
Gladiators thing.
it was just, and then of course the person's like a character, Blackleaf ends up dying.
Yeah.
And so, of course, obviously, as it happens, anytime a character dies in a D&D game, they are then banished and can no longer play D&D again. It's just just how it is. It's how it happens.
Yeah.
I know certain GMs where if they did that, they would never ever play another game because there'd be no one left.
Well, you can't even associate with your friends again or anything. It's like your life is, because if you die in the game, you die in real life.
Right.
As long as you choose some appropriate font for
No one life for you.
your letter,
Yeah.
I'm sending a picture of the Nitro that they're referencing.
That's why you have many character sheets.
Slightly different.
But Blackleaf ends up killing herself because, Marcy or Debbie or whichever one ends up killing herself, and she ends up hanging herself because she can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And you end up having the other person having a change of heart and going into the steam tunnels armed with her dark power to try and fight the evil, but realizing that she cannot do it with her powerful cleric power, which is also kind of odd to say that you can solo a dungeon as a cleric in D&D.
What the fuck was that thing? Was that a booger monster?
It's one that they utilized, and I want to say they utilized it from Journey Quest, and they transported it over.
I believe so, yeah.
So it was like a cave crawler or something like that.
Yeah.
And
there's those sort of gelatinous beasts you run across in D&D sometimes. It happens.
It looked like a booger to me.
Okay. It's just that, like, when they started doing the old ones chant, it's like, what does that mean? That is what is dead was not. And I was like flipping over in my chair, like, ah!
Yeah. Well, another great JonTron joke was it's some sort of Arabic. Yeah, one of the many varieties. And then she was like, you had to convert the Muslims that didn't realize they were worshiping the moon god. And then JonTron was like, I ain't even going anywhere near that.
Well, that's the chick tracks are like super hostile to other religions and especially Islam. Like they're intensely Islamophobic to a degree which you would not believe.
Yeah.
There are actually several of the banned chick tracks are the ones that just flat out say like Islam is bullshit and they worship the moon and just all kinds of stuff.
It is made of cheese,
So, and they always draw Arabic people with like giant noses too. So that gives you an idea of the kind of content we're talking about here.
Very subtle indeed.
But she does manage
Lion
to.
brick.
She does manage to get out, and then when she manages to pray to God for just that moment, and then she's connected with this preacher who helps her by, doing good old-fashioned book burning, because, that's exactly what you do if you're going to save yourself.
That's the only way this story could end, really.
Dude has his own mockumentary, too, I think I saw on their archive.
I don't want to be Upstar, I want to be Debbie. The monitors start going haywire. Like I like how in their like occult den, like they have like advanced technology next to the candles.
Yeah.
What's going on? The stars aren't aligned. What's happening?
Yeah, that was another JonTron joke. Was the why are the stars no longer right? And he's like, John is clocking in at a whopping 3:19.
I think my favorite. I'm just gonna do my favorite. My favorite thing in this whole short is like that moment where the stars are no longer aligned, and it just cuts to Cthulhu, and everything starts shaking, and then it just cuts to Cthulhu, and Cthulhu's like, oh, and he just falls over.
The castle blows up
Right.
And the castle explodes
for no reason.
It's like, what the hell is going on?
So what did y'all think of the? So of course that's pretty much the whole of Dark Dungeons, and what did y'all think of the actual production value of Dark Dungeons?
A+ so
Pretty good for
Like,
this group.
Well done for a crowded funded movie.
Well, super fast though about that. One of my favorite things about chick tracks and of that kind of scare tactic, fundamentalist media. One of my favorite things about it is the idea that this cataclysmic heaven and hell kind of stakes, they all rest on one single person instead of like multiple people or generations of people over thousands of years. It's just this one person in this one town. That's what it all rests on. It's like but yeah, production wise, yeah, for a crowd-funded thing, this definitely looked a lot better than other crowd-funded things that I've seen. So they definitely, and the caliber of actors, they got people that seem to understand their tone, and they understood how to make it just authentic enough to the real thing to do justice to it, but also how to have the people that know it's a satire, how to do stuff that I'm sure that they would find funny.
That's kind of that whole crew's deal, really, is their comedic timing's always kind of had that quality to it on some levels, even when they're doing more obvious, like straight up parody stuff. It's they know how to time a good joke so that it's not like slapping you like a wet fish. It's got that little bit of subtle, like proper humor to it.
Subtlety is the key.
The CGI that they use for Cthulhu, you can kind of tell it's like cheap CGI, but they use like just the right amount of shadow to kind of cover it up so that it looks a lot more expensive and well done than it actually is.
Yeah,
and I was personally really impressed by that. It's like, wow, that Cthulhu looks really good. Like,
and they mostly used real sets and real locations to whatever CGI they use is not improperly used.
They found legit steam tunnels. They had such a hard time finding legit ones that were like what they wanted, but they found an old plant that they got permission from the plant owner to use the old, like, not in use steam tunnels, so they could have legit steam tunnels. And then, of course, with the shadows there, it was really easy to take kind of the cheaper looking creatures and make them look a lot more threatening, because it's dark. You can't see a lot of the details of it. I mean,
I'm sure you can properly use a steam tunnel. I mean, you just go down there and lurk like Gollum or some shit. What is like a maintenance thing? That's how it's going on down there.
I mean,
Solomon
Grundy scat in there, and he looked threatening.
Sure, we're not using it. You guys can do creepy nerd shit down there.
I'm sure that all of us who've been to college, and doesn't matter which campus or what part of the country, every college campus has at least one area that you're like, yeah, I could imagine a horror movie happening here, because it's like a creepy
Right.
basement, or a lower floors of a building, or a older building that they don't really use much anymore.
Oh yeah,
I lived for 3 years in a former frat house that had a couple of rooms that, you weren't supposed to.
When I was part of a production, a stage production company called Break a Leg Productions, they were using St. Francis High School, And what I learned is that underneath the high school is a series of tunnels that go all the way to like this old nunnery that is like right nearby, and right underneath the cemetery is where all these tunnels are. I would imagine that there would that those tunnel systems would make a great horror. Like
sounds like it.
Yeah.
I actually wrote a poem about that place, since I only saw little bits and pieces while I was there. But,
Sounds like you stumbled on some old disused role-playing facility there.
we used to
Those
party.
real-life places.
We used to party in the cemetery. So
Just like Return of the Living Dead.
We're dead. Yep.
Nice.
I've never partied under a cemetery. I don't think many have. That'd be awesome.
I love the way that
That almost sounds like body snatching stuff from like the 1800s, because that was a whole industry.
they had some really good cinematography in this. I mean, I loved how they did that whole blood with the dice thing.
Yeah,
But I also loved
sick.
that whole like thing where they did the party where they would just quickly assembled the tables and had everything there, and it was very low budget, but they managed to make it look extremely high budget with the camera work and just the extent of how they were able to use the funding they had. I thought that it was an amazing feat of work that they did.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like it's probably their best looking thing, you know?
Oh yeah, leagues above the gamer. So,
Yeah, or Journey Quest or any of that. That might top it humor wise for me, but definitely in terms of looks and production and everything, this is like their peak, I would say.
What about? Roger, do you have something to say on it?
Not yet.
What about the music? Did y'all actually? They had that song about it.
Oh,
I
I
like
love the
that.
song at the end.
I like the music quite a bit.
Yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
good.
A lot
I
better
thought it
than
was pretty rad.
Not bad.
needed to be.
What'd y'all think of the Dark Dungeons themes that they had?
Yeah.
Partly I had like cut it off.
Yeah, same here.
It was fun to watch as on the DVD itself, but I watched it several times on the DVD with the commentaries and so on. That was the good thing, is that you had that if you had the opportunity, you could throw it several times. Well, I guess that's. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to go to before we start going to favorites?
Well, I'm not super familiar with the chick tracks or whatever, but if it's as accurate to it as it's been made to seem, I find it pretty fascinating that during that whole initial part where they're first getting into the role playing, they do such a good job. You know, if you read between the lines of the like trying to demonize it shit, that's
Yeah.
clearly exaggerated. They do a really good job of explaining why D&D is kind of fun. You know, like you
Yeah.
could tell at some point in the process of looking into this, one of these Bible thumper dudes like played it and was like, "Holy, I kind of like this," you know. But I've got to make it look like shit because
Well,
reasons.
and that's
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of the our newly disgraced Marilyn Manson. He would recount how, because he was a high schooler or middle schooler or high schooler in the 80s during the height of anti Dungeons and Dragons fever and that kind of stuff, and also like backbasking with records and stuff. And he was like, he went to a really hardcore right wing Christian school called Heritage Christian School, and they would have seminars about backmasked messages and records and stuff. And what ended up happening is that all of the records that were banned and stuff, those were all the ones he sought out. So if anything, a lot of that stuff, the scare tactics, all it does is
recruited several kids.
I was gonna say like most of it, I imagine that it probably did more harm to their cause than good, because all it did was provide them a playbook for the kinds of stuff that kids will want to check out and want to get involved in.
To that specific point, though, of like even that stuff aside, just as a fan of D&D, that part where she's explaining like why they like it is so spot on that if that's not put in there by the zombie Orpheus dudes, if that's accurate to the chick track, I'd be willing to bet money somebody involved in that played it and liked it, but
It's
their religious
possible.
convictions or whatever forced them to like exaggerate elements of it. Oh, when I cast those spells, I've got a hunger.
I sent you the link to it. It's a very short read, but it is there's a reason why this is so short. They adapted what was basically a page worth of comic.
Right.
But it's a fun. I think to me, like I said, there's a reason why a lot of us who read it looked at it and then made it our own instead of theirs. And I think that's how it is. That's the reason why I look at Mazes and Monsters as I look at it as more of a badge of our own to get through as role players. Something. And I think to myself, like, that dude was mentally ill. He didn't need to be playing that stuff in the first place. But that's the thing is and it all comes off of, like, there was a real story about a guy who supposedly had gotten into D&D, and when his character died, he ended up killing himself. But the guy was
the story that was went around, that kind of thing.
The guy was very
in the first place.
Yeah, he was mentally ill already. He had like a schizophrenia or something like that. And and Mazes and Monsters did a good job of showing that Tom Hanks's character was mentally ill.
Well, and that's the thing. Like with those like Slender Man girls and stuff, it's like people that are mentally ill. It doesn't really matter what pushes them over the edge, because like they're that mentally ill rather that they're gonna do heinous things.
You can latch onto something that the creator tells you is fake and still believe that it's real,
Well, I mean, I've worked in the fields for many years, and I can tell you right now, the people who have done some terrible things due to mental illness, just linked to the Bible and Christianity is is a huge number. But I will tell you right now, I don't blame the religion for it. It's, again, the person got a hold of it and the mental illness twisted it to their that thing. That's the same thing with this. You got something that's like this. Yes, you're going to take something like this and it's going to happen the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it could use comic books, it can use novels, it can use images. I mean, who can understand a crazy person's mind? They believe whatever they believe in, and unfortunately, D&D was there one of the things that the mainstream media got a hold of and ran away with the baton. Just like the rock and roll thing. They're saying, the rock and roll was designed to send people to hell. There were hidden messages inside rock and roll, like the Beatles. There was something hidden messages, and at the time it was very impressionable. I thought I had some credence, but as I got older, I just didn't care for the music too much.
I'm still waiting for that message from Satan, but it hasn't happened yet.
Around that time, we did have a lot of satanic type groups like AC/DC and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to make money off this thing, but I think it just was a phase. Just people are curious about this stuff. And just like with the Dungeons and Dragons thing, people, there were gamers that played the game because they really want to have some fun, and they had some really wacko weirdos out there that just want to make make life miserable for the rest of us.
Yeah, anybody can
real
corrupt.
Weird when EverQuest came around too, man, because then there was that barrier, and they could just be fucking freaks. Boy, did I run into a lot of them.
I say anything can be corrupted and turned into something that it's not meant to be.
Yeah,
including the internet.
Oh, the internet was corrupted the day it was born. But with that being said, why don't we go ahead into our favorites? Dustin, you had mentioned a favorite. Did you want to throw out another favorite?
I think probably their introduction to the RPG community, like when they go into what's basically like the dungeon club, and just like almost like the orgy rave scene that we get there. Like they just walk in the door and immediately like tall guys like hit on them like, hey.
Yeah.
It was so insane. Like, oh my god. This whole movie was nuts. I mean, it had slow moments where I was not like laughing like as hard, but I would really recommend this. Like, this was so good.
And it will not take much of your time.
I was
Yeah,
kind of
for
surprised,
sure,
although
dude.
I'm kind of surprised how low rating this has on IMDb.
Yeah,
probably because people don't know it's a satire.
that's true.
Most likely.
Well, because most people are dumb. But
Well, I think to actually get the license, they told them it wasn't a satire.
yeah.
Which is hilarious. I love that.
Even in the actual bonus features there in the interviews, they're sitting there saying, "Oh, this whole satire thing people are saying. I mean, really, you can look at the film and see what it is."
Yeah, which is in and of itself a satire. So favorite thing that I would say, because again, most of the really good stuff that's in this movie I did see in the JonTron review, but something that did really make me laugh that was not in there, and I wish it was like kind of what Dustin was saying with their introduction, but further back than the part he mentioned, which was like the very first scene that we see them, and it's the horribly written, painfully awkward exposition dialogue to try to set up these characters, and it's like I've seen bad exposition dialogue in my day, and some of the worst of it tends to come from these kinds of either movies or comics or whatever, from this kind of media. Some of the worst of it tends to come from this kind of stuff, and they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it, and their delivery was hilarious, and the homoerotic tension in it, and in the part like right before they get into the RPG party. What else could we be doing on a Saturday night or whatever? They just nail it, and they sell the comedy of it in a very subtle way that it just works. But again, the clunkiness of the exposition dialogue, I was like, that is so good, and it's not necessarily like a big moment, but it's just those little things, those little points of authenticity that really make all the difference.
Well, let's see. Mo, what was your favorite scene?
Oh God! I mean, there's I guess a couple little things. Seeing the Cthulhu dice in there really warms my heart because it's arguably a movie about one of the most complicated dice games ever, and to showcase prominently, like center of the frame, even though it's real quick, like arguably one of the most simple dice games ever, is pretty neat. I highly recommend spending $6 on a set of Cthulhu dice eventually and trying it out. Other than that, I really like that scene where they're first doing the role playing. And I think it's Nitro. It's like, that's some mighty fine role playing, Debbie. Like,
that's
I
the best RPG I've seen in 15 years.
Yeah, that was so good. Yeah, that's probably my favorite line of dialogue for sure. And then just, I guess maybe the Cthulhu monster would be that was my jam. I was really digging that. Dustin put it perfectly. It's clearly cheap, but
what?
That was so good, dude.
What about you, Jake? What was your favorite scene?
For me, probably the a couple of the, like I said, those laugh out loud moments where the something like just no one more popular than those RPGers or whatever, and then that whole rave party scene was just great. But also the scenes with Marcy and Debbie, where the one was just looking at the other one and trying to make the bedroom eyes, and it was just
yeah, really.
You gotta get honorable mention too to that scene where Marcy gets hit with that poison trap dart as she's trying to walk away. It's that look on her face, really?
Yeah.
What about you, Roger? What was your favorite scene?
I kind of like the RPG party, to tell you the truth. It was the whole movie was strange to me, so I was kind of looking at it, so what the heck is going on? Is this evil, or whether it's this was kind of, or was this a satire? But I did like the RPG party. It was kind of interesting to watch.
How about you, Forrest?
I'm gonna have to say the D&D party.
And you, Dave?
There are like little moments here and there, definitely, but I'm gonna say two. The one where they tell the two girls that they're chicken, and they're like no, and then he's like prove it by actually playing, and then I think the whole RPG party was pretty rad, but I think the moment when the teacher lady was telling her exactly that she was the one that actually like brought back the evil
power.
one. Yeah, I think that whole thing, and she was like, huh, what? I didn't do it, you know.
So for me, a lot of it was all about the references.
The shadow.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. All those references, all of the role-playing references, and probably a million more that I didn't understand. It's just really cool to look at it. But also the scene where they're burning the books, because that to me, that to me also hits home what this is. And though it does have a lot of laughs, there is a serious nature to this that you look at and you think to yourself, this is something that we really need to be careful against. Right. I think any time that you work to ban any type of thing without understanding it first, without trying to do it, be it whatever, you talk about Dr. Seuss, recent times, or any type of music or any type of video game, without actually understanding what it is. I mean, shoot, they had congressional trials about Night Trap, and Night Trap is probably one of the most stupid things to be have people go. Yeah, so that's
Night Trap's probably just one of the most stupid things that exists, dude.
But that's the thing, is it's
a full motion video game, so none of them are any good.
But that's the idea of it, is that the people who are up about banning it knew nothing about it. These people didn't pay an idea. The people who were trying to ban D&D, most of them, maybe there's like few that were excited by it and then like brought back into the cloth, maybe. But for the most part, most of them didn't know what D&D is.
Or even play the game.
Psychologically, people that want to ban things, like that's their go-to, they tend to be people that have very poor regulation of their own feelings and of their own kind of internal worlds and that sort of stuff. So they have to make sure that the outside world conforms to their own attempts at a stable inner state of being. And it's like, well, the responsibility has to ultimately come down on the viewers and on the people that are consuming the media that is out there, because nobody can expect reality to conform exactly to their preferences, because that's just never been how life has worked, and it's never is how life's gonna work.
Well, to quote a line from a TV show that always stuck in my mind that might help explain that mindset is, wait, if this is about responsibility, I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So they don't want to take responsibility for that. They want it.
Like, that's not a Pee Wee Herman quote.
No, that was actually from that '70s show.
Well, at least if something needs to be banned, it needs to be something seriously that needs to be banned. It's the silliness of banning comic books and and video games and role playing games is plain silly. If they really want to ban something, that like the Communist Manifesto or something like that. But there's different viewpoints of stuff that needs to be banned or should be considered banned or just stupidly banned. I mean, when you ban everything, then you're not gonna have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and whoever said that the world had to be safe in terms of ideas. I mean, in terms of ideas, whoever said the world had to be safe, you need to.
With safe spaces. I just don't agree with that. When you have adults acting like children in safe spaces, when they get out in the real world, nobody's going to have any mercy for them.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Better that they know now. Yeah, the better that they get exposed to things that they disagree with now and know how to talk it through and know how to like say, okay, well, I agree with that piece of it, not the whole thing, but okay, that piece of it I can agree with. No, we teach people that it's all or nothing, and sorry, but in real life, that kind of thinking doesn't get you anywhere.
I mean, well, one thing that could be taken as a this may not have necessarily been a nod against the chick tracks so much as an actual real what am I trying to say? An actual reflection of real life. These two girls were definitely over the top at the start of the movie. There's no question. They were they were a little over the top. But the upbringing, the background that is strongly hinted from them is actually something that I can kind of understand and relate a little bit. And I went to a Lutheran school where it was culture shock to realize how many people were there for totally non-religious reasons.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, and it was these girls, and I saw firsthand a lot of quote good girls and guys.
Yeah.
A lot of them, when they were thrown into that college mix, when they fell hard.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason why they talk about the preacher's daughters and stuff like that. It's because, again, when you're sheltered and you're not given, I mean, it's like you tell your children don't play in the dirt. Those are the children that get sick the most when they get exposed.
Yeah. Well,
It's one of the reasons why. It's one of the reasons why I think the drinking age being 21 is incredibly stupid, because it's like you will never have freer access to alcohol than when you're in college.
Yeah.
And as long as it's illegal, as long as it's a bad thing, as long as it's a no-no, people going to want it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that's human nature.
Europe, in places where it's like 16, there's less kids that drink by that age because they're like over already by that point.
You get it out of your system most of the time.
Well, I'm against repression of any sort. Yeah. You know, I think it's pretty demonstrably a bad thing.
Help! I'm being repressed.
Yeah, I think you can definitely
some sort of limit. You know, there has to be boundaries and limitations. That's why we have kids now that are shooting people and challenging authority. But, you know, there has to be some sort of limit. You know, this is used to, because right now the most dangerous time is now, because the internet, you know, you can talk to somebody on the other side of the world instantly. In the old days, your parents told you what you needed to know, good or bad. But you could control knowledge, you know, the influx of knowledge to kids. But now with the internet, you can definitely get strange ideas and pass it on.
And there's an immediate echo chamber for those ideas.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the thing is
echo.
That's the thing, though. There's an argument for both in a way. I mean, one, you want to be able to control some things, especially for the very young, but at the same time, you don't want to put somebody in an echo chamber because they end up like these people in the chick movement, burning books, because it's like, well, yeah, it's Jesus said burn all the books and kill all the people that don't look like us. Who told you that? The preachers and my family, and anybody outside is wrong. You know, that's the thing. It's for
me, I think it's the infantilization of adults. You know, whether it's for religious reasons or not, you know, that's really the issue. Because obviously, you can't. Children of a certain age, they just do not have the developmental capacity to handle most things that you throw at them. So yeah, they need to be protected. But like
concrete versus abstract reasoning.
Well, but what I'm saying is, like, nowadays we do tend to coddle people in ways that we shouldn't. Yeah. And before, you know, the people that were doing it before were the ones who were doing it for trying to maintain a religious order. And then nowadays it's for people that, you know, want to perhaps they want to be more sensitive, which is fine, but they're doing it in a way that is making people less able to handle the harshness of the world rather than more capable.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the reason why people get so offended by it is because they've been coddled so much.
Exactly.
A good way to get those kids away from the harshness of the world. We'll welcome them with open arms. We'll make all types of good friends. Eat a lot of Doritos.
That's right. I think we could all benefit from having a nice D&D game.
Exactly.
With or without
if there needs to be some, corseted Amazon devil woman coming in there with a riding crop to whip us into leveling up shape, I'm down.
I am the beholder. Come my way.
That reminds me. Is next week Spandex week?
It would be, Monday.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Speaking of role playing,
Yes.
by the way, just as a shout out to my channel, SeptumSin versus the World, because that's where we're going to be
Right.
on the Monday.
Spandex Heroes.
So next week is Spandex week, and it's Spandex week. It's Spandex week on the show.
With that being said, I'll go ahead and hand this back to Dave to wrap us up.
All right. Definitely join us on the other channel, Inside Movies Galore, where we are going to be talking about another film that Brandon has in store for us. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you are. And for whatever reason, stay out of really, really, really dark dungeons.
Okay.
Yeah, those steam
away from the steam tunnels.
You only live once.
Night all.
Good night.
All right.
I tell you what, Stooge Mania